Welcome to today's edition of the 2024 Rome and Floyd County High School Football Preview Show Series. WLAQ Sports sits down with each area head coach to discuss the upcoming season. Here are your hosts, Matt Davis and Ian Griffin.
Hello, football fans, and welcome to the Armuchee Indians Football Preview Show presented by WLAQ Sports. We are glad to be joined by the head coach of the Indians, Eric Belew. Coach, thanks for stopping by and talking a little football with us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
All right, well, I guess we'll just kind of go into our questions here, Ian, and we'll start by kind of reflecting on year one as head coach of the Indians and that sort of thing. You guys won 4 of your first 6 games, were on the cusp of making the playoffs in year one. So talk a little bit about, what you learned from your first year at the helm as a head coach of the Armuchee Indians, if you will.
Yeah, I think, the first thing that I learned is really just how fun our kids are to coach. Our kids just, they want to be coached, and they're just a group of kids that love football. There's not a whole lot of coaching character. Our kids just kind of already had a standard set, I think a lot of that comes from what happens from the 8 to 3 during the school day. When it comes to our academics, there's a standard and there's no hangover going in from the school day into practice. Our kids have been held to a high standard for 7 hours already. So that kind of rolls over into practice and into games for us. So, the culture that's been set in the school building really made that transition easy for me. And easy for the kids. I think, whoever rolled in there as the head coach last year, they were ready to, fight forward and do whatever they can to be successful.
Well, it's been building blocks now for several years. This program's really started to learn what it takes to win, and in your first year to win 4 out of your first 6 is very impressive. So kind of as a follow-up to that first question, how do you continue the process of building your program after season 1?
Yeah, I think, maybe at this point it's kind of cliche, but it works. I've grown up a Bama fan. I've grown up a Nick Saban fan. He talks about the process all the time, and that's really what we try to do with our kids. Our mantra at the end of practice today was, you can't be worried about how long the practice is. You can't be worried about how long the season or whatever it may be is. We got to be worried about where our feet are. For example, in the weight room, if you got a set of 8 on squat, you're worried about 1 squat at a time. And that even rolls over into a Friday night. We can't be worried about, this could be a long night where we're going back and forth. You just got to worry about the play that's in front of you. And I think with the way this generation is when it comes to instant gratification and not having a long attention span, that's kind of our way to combat that is just, hey, just worry about what you're doing right now in this moment. And then, whatever happens for the future.
We're joined by the head coach of the Armuchee Indians, Eric Belew, is with us here for the 2024 Armuchee Indians Football Preview Show here on the WLAQ YouTube channel. I want to jump into some names here of some of your guys. Who are some familiar names, some experienced guys that you've got coming back this season that you'll be counting on for leadership? Yeah,
first one that comes out is Jackson Hightower. He's probably got 30 games under his belt. He's been fortunate to stay healthy for his entire career. He's one of those, and I'm extremely sad as a senior. He's one of those guys that you could hope could stay in your program forever. Does everything we ask him to do, and outside of his tremendous physical abilities, his ability as a leader is what's so special about him. He demands effort and attitude and character from everybody around him, and he's one of those when he walks into a room, you notice it. I kind of have a hard time remembering that he's a teenager because a lot of times it feels like I'm coaching somebody that's my age. So he's going to be, obviously a very pivotal part of our offense and defense. And then right beside him at inside linebacker is Hayden Phillips, who is also a fullback. We get to be pretty creative on offense with having 2 fullbacks in the game because of both of their abilities. They're kind of like twins out there to where they do the same job. They have the same skill set. They're both very, very physical. So we're really, really excited about what those guys bring to the table, and especially them both playing the same position. Skill-wise, one of the guys that sticks out the most is Blaine Ragland. He's going to be our quarterback this year. He played every position on the field last year. Kick returner. He was a punter that averaged over 38 yards per punt. Didn't drop a single punt, probably saved us, God knows how many yards by just being willing to catch punts as our punt returner. And he's a 4.0 GPA kid. He's got some pretty high academic schools that are looking at him to play collegiately at the next level. And that he's just kind of a microcosm of what our kids are really like. We have kids that care about academics and that can do a lot of things because they're willing and able.
It sounds like you've got a lot of good talent coming back. Obviously, there's roster turnover every year. You lose kids to graduation, but that creates opportunities for the younger players. So who are some of the new names we may hear this season?
Yeah, so, there's one kid that we're really excited about, Caden Wright, who's going to be a freshman next year. We call him, you don't want to label him as this, but he is kind of like a little Hightower. He's going to find a great opportunity to play this year. He's just extremely physical, and he's one of those kids to where his effort is almost obnoxious to people around him because he can't turn it off. He's got one gear. He plays the same positions, H-back and inside backer, and we're really excited about what he brings to the table. William Pethel is going to be a senior next year. He's actually our principal's son. And he got a lot of play time last year, but he has really gotten after it in the weight room. Had a great track season. Ended up placing in the state finals in track in the 400 meter. And he's really thickened up some. So, we're excited about what he brings to the table as well. So we've got some older guys that are going to be exciting that are taking on some new roles, and we're excited about these younger classes that are coming up as well.
And Coach, we've talked a little bit about some of your guys on the team. One of the things I want to make sure that we cover here in our interview today is to talk a little bit about your coaching staff. So who are the guys that are helping you out, and offensive, defensive coordinators and things of that nature, special teams?
Yeah, so Jamie Rice, who is, I think he's either going to his 8th or 9th year at Armuchee, played college football at Shorter. He's our defensive coordinator. He's kind of the heart and soul of our staff. Me and our principal had actually had a conversation about him today. We were just kind of watching him coach. And, him being here and, being a part of multiple staffs and just kind of seeing all of his perspective from all of his experiences here is incredibly valuable. He brings so much value every day. And we also have Trevor Price, who's our offensive coordinator. He played college football at Berry. He's in his 20s. He's young and fiery, and he's got a lot of really good perspective on kind of his creativity when it comes to putting guys in certain situations. And he's kind of our devil's advocate in a lot of situations. He kind of brings a perspective of, well, did you think about it this way? So he does a great job. He came in with me last year as well. We have Tim Puckett, who is our strength coach, linebackers coach, fullbacks coach, and is also our head basketball coach. He had a great year this past year with the basketball program. He does a great job with our strength and condition. That's another, big aspect of there's no rollover when it comes to our kids that work out in the morning and then they roll on into practice. The standard has been set, and Coach Bucket is a major component to that. And you have to be a dude to coach inside backers and fullbacks and be a strength coach. And he exemplifies all that. Does a great job. Coach Chubb. He is our outside backers and receivers coach. He is, talk about the heart and soul. He is our minister of culture, or whatever kind of funny name you want to give to that guy, because that's just who he is. There is never a dull day when Coach Chubb's around, and that's obvious in the school building with this special education role that he has. He kind of plays father to a whole lot of kids in the school building, not just football players. His presence is just invaluable. And he's kind of that coach that a lot of our players flock to when it comes to personal issues and stuff like that, which all of our coaches do a great job with that. But he just has a bright and different perspective that he brings to the table, which is really good. And then we have Josh Duff, who is our defensive line coach. He was at Rockmart for a lot of the time when I was there. His dad, Dan Duff, has been a head coach kind of, throughout probably about 150-mile radius of here at some different schools. Very successful, and he kind of pokes his head around every now and then, which is great. Coach Duff was our head middle school coach last year. He got promoted to being D-line coach full-time because he just does a great job. And a quick thing about him was, he was doing both roles last year. He was head middle school coach and coaching varsity defensive line, and there was days when he couldn't be there at practice, so I would fill in for D-line. And when I would go over there during Indy, the kids would be like, "Oh, is Coach Duff not going to be here? Is it just you?" You know what I mean? But that's just our kids take to Coach Duff really well. He does a great job. And then that just started today, Tim Wellmaker. We just got him on board. Previously, the head football coach at Loganville Christian. They were moving to this area. He's just got great perspective of being a head coach before, experience at Buford. He was there for a long time, so he's going to coach O-line for us. Incredibly valuable experience that he's bringing in, and just seeing him, today with this first day with the kids, just hitting the ball rolling. We've got a very unique staff, but they all kind of fit into one big puzzle of something that works really great, I think.
Great stuff. And that will lead us to our first break. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching the Armuchee Indians preview presented by WLAQ Sports. Make sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel, and we'll be back with Coach Eric Belew after this message.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
All right, we are back here with Armuchee Indians head coach Eric Belew. Coach, we talked about it when you walked through the door. It's hot out there, and you've got practices to run. So tell us a little bit about your approach to summer workouts. I know you have to watch the wet bulb report and keep these kids safe. So tell us what's the regimen for the kids right now.
Yeah, well, first things first. Previously talking about staff. Our trainer Bo Bradshaw does an incredible job on monitoring those things and taking care of our kids. His role is incredibly valuable as well. Just he has to be at so many different places at once, especially in the summer when you got 6 or 7 different teams practicing on campus. But his insight and him just giving us feedback on how our players are feeling and stuff. That's he does a really good job. With that, and I got a really good feel of his feedback and also Coach Puckett's feedback. Him being the strength coach, kind of seeing where our kids are. Cardiovascularly and also. Just if they have their legs underneath them or not. Today being the first day back after giving them 2 weeks off, they were exhausted a little bit. But that's what we give them that time off for, so they can get their legs back underneath them. So obviously like you said, paying attention to the wet bulb. That's important. We're not going to be one of those groups of people that are putting the wet bulb underneath the tent beside a fan and stuff like that. We want to make sure our kids are as safe as possible. Last year we had to practice inside. For a whole week because the wet bulb was what it was, and that's part of it. But our kids, they just roll with it. You could tell our kids that they're going to go practice in a cow pasture in Nevada, and they'll just hop on a bus and do it. So our kids not complaining when those transitions happen, but also having Bo and our administration always being in communication and making sure that we're doing what's best for our kids makes it pretty easy.
Coach, I want to shift gears a little bit here for this next question, but obviously one of the things that took place, going into the season was reclassification. Mm-hmm. It's a new look region. I know that with the private schools and everything, it's a different playoff format, but from what I understand, it's pretty similar in this situation, right? So if you wouldn't mind, explain that to us a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the teams that you'll face in your schedule this year.
Yeah, so there's some familiarity, with some teams that we're playing, and obviously there's some new folks, like Fannin County. There's not much history between Fannin County and Armuchee. I've actually got to coach against them twice when I was at Rockmart. I know that they're always extremely physical. They're one of those teams that's they're going to live and die by how they hit you. And that's very evident with the success they've had in the past couple of years. Them being new, another team that comes off my head is Christian Heritage. We actually scrimmaged them last year. Frank Barden does an incredible job there, obviously with what he's done in his entire career, and just getting to meet him through that scrimmage process and kind of pick his brain some was great. I'm excited, that we get to, still compete against each other and kind of develop that relationship, because it'd be foolish of me not to, being young in my career and not, try and attach myself to guys like that. And, having Gordon Central and Coosa, Dade County, seeing all those teams again, all those guys do a great job. Just kind of excited about some of the familiarity, but also, new opportunities as well. I think our kids are excited about.
And as far as playoffs, I know that the private goes to like a power ranking, but will it still be the top 4 in the region that get in?
I think so.
Yeah.
What I tell people is we're just going to try and win every game we play. And they sent some kind of math equation on how it's going to work, and I got 2 lines into it, and I was just like, all right, let's just try and win all of them. You know what I mean? So as long as we worry about our stuff, we can control our own destiny and not have to pull out a calculator.
Well, that's a perfect segue to talking X's and O's. Mm-hmm. So with that said, what can fans expect as far as offense, defense, and special teams style of play? What are we going to see from the Indians this season?
Well, I think one thing we want to solidify is that we're going to be a physical brand of football. In my mind, controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball is something that is it really doesn't matter what type of kid you have. I think at any point that's a goal that you have to try and win. So that's one thing that we do. We're going to be an team that we ran a lot last year on offense. And we're going to run right at you. But we do feel like we have some skill guys that can kind of make some things happen on the perimeter this year as well. So really what I try and tell our guys is we got to do our best job to stay out of our kids' way. We've got kids that can make plays. Let's give them the ball, where they're best. It may sound elementary, but, if we got a physical running back, we're going to keep him in between the tackles. If we got a scat back that can move around and make some guys miss, we're going to try to get them in space. And then another thing offensively, we just kind of try and formation people to death. We don't like to be too complicated when it comes to our scheme, but we think if we can move people around, that can kind of create some problems, for other defenses. But none of that stuff matters if we're not physical at the point of attack and, as well as us carrying the football. One thing we preach with our receivers, if you don't block, you don't get the ball. So that's just kind of the mentality we like to have, all the way across the board. And that carries over into defense as well. Coach Rice has done a phenomenal job with instilling, that we've got to fly to the football. When he gets most frustrated during practice is when, we're not doing that. And he does just such a good job of making that the focal point, because you can line up in whatever you want. If you don't fly to the football, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how talented you are either. If you don't fly to the football, it's going to be tough to stop people. So him putting a major emphasis on that, I think creates a great opportunity for us to be successful. And then all that kind of carries over, into our special teams as well. We try to be, I don't like to use the term vanilla, but we don't want to be complicated on special teams. We want to make sure that we're being physical on kickoff. We're flying to the football on kickoff, punt coverage. And we want to be extremely efficient catching the ball on kickoff, return, and punt. That's one thing that I bragged on Blaine Ragg in the last year, is that he attacked the ball and he caught it. People don't realize how much yards you lose per game by just letting the ball roll, 15, 20 yards. If you have 4 or 5 punts, you're looking at losing 70 to 100 yards of total field position in a game. So we spend a lot of time on special teams, throughout the year. We would like to brag and say that it's more than most. I don't know what everybody else does, but, we like to hang our hat on spending a lot of time on special teams.
That brings us to our second break, so stay with us. Like and subscribe to the channel. WLEQ Sports is glad to have you with us for our Armuchee Indians high school football preview.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
And welcome back in, everybody. We're glad to have you with us for the 2024 football preview show for the Armuchee Indians. We're very excited to have Eric Belew, the head coach, in the studio with us today. And we'll just jump back into our conversation here for our final segment. And, Coach, we'll start by talking about goals and expectations. And I'm certainly not asking you to lay out your goals for us and
Right.
things like that. I know the goal is to, take every week at a time, try to win each game and get better and those sorts of things. But How do you approach goals and expectations? I know it's probably different with different groups and things of that nature, but are there any mantras or themes or anything like that you have going into the season, that sort of thing?
Yeah, kind of building off last year, kind of our mantra and catchphrase is all in. We want to have 100% effort, 100% execution, 100% of the time. So that's kind of where that builds off of. But what I kind of like to do is, last year, kids can kind of make up their own mantras. You kind of just try and be nosy and see what the kids are talking about, and CJ Collins, a senior for us last year, he kind of took a leadership role, and kids started breaking it down on next step. So, all in's always going to be kind of our major mantra. But I like for our kids to have some kind of creativity, and that's manifesting itself, now as we speak. The kids have been breaking it down on juice. They want to have a lot of juice during practice and a lot of energy. So whatever they decide to make up, let's let them do that, as long as it's school appropriate, obviously. But that's one of the things I like about our kids is they want to take a responsibility in part of our process. In regards to goals, when it comes to schematic goals, obviously we have a points per game goal and stuff like that, and big emphasis on being able to run the ball effectively. But I think efficiency goals are more so of what we're focused on. Turnover margin, third down percentage. Those are the kind of goals that we kind of like to talk about more. We really don't have them written down anywhere, but it's just kind of a part of our language. I'm not against having goal boards or anything like that, but what I want to see is our staff talking about what our goals are. Talking about with our players when we're doing walkthrough or anything like that, having situational awareness on, hey, if we win third down on offense and defense 60 to 70% of the time, we're going to win X amount of games, So that's kind of the language we like to speak. And I'm not very good with math, so I don't like having, a bunch of detailed.
Hit some common ground there.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. So we just kind of try and keep it simple. We got to win third down. Be really good on first down on offense. There's not a whole lot of play calls for 2nd and 12, but there are a bunch for 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. So that's kind of where our language for goals kind of fits in.
Awesome. Well, Coach, to wrap things up, you mentioned the culture that was in place when you got to Armuchee. So I wanted to ask you, we wait for the season all year. You put in all this work to get ready. What are you looking forward to most about the season kicking off? And talk a little bit about the Armuchee community and what that means to you.
Well, there's been a lot of cosmetic change that have happened, on campus, getting a new field house, getting a new turf facility, with the gymnasium that we have. All of that in my mind is just symbolic to what the community deserves. And our kids are one of the biggest benefactors of that, of just understanding our kids are great because we have a great community. Kids, in most cases, aren't just extremely mature and high character kids for no reason, right? We've got great parents. We've got a great booster club that just is willing to serve. Our booster club just works extremely hard. And we have just so many people that are willing to help out. And a whole lot of that sometimes is just, manual labor, like stuff needs to get done. We have people that are willing to, my favorite Bible verse, or one of them, is Isaiah 6:8, and Isaiah responds with saying, God gives him this commission that he's probably not going to be very successful at. It's going to be incredibly difficult, but he responds and says, "Here I am, send me." And I just see that in our community so much, with our staff, all the way down from the janitorial staff up to the administration. Everybody just kind of carries this I'm willing to help mentality, and that's why I really don't think that there's a place like Armuchee anywhere close. It's the place where I tell people all the time, the reason why I took this job is because this is where I want my daughter to go to school. Just because I don't think there isn't a public school experience like this anywhere else. It's just a special place because of as you mentioned, the community.
Awesome. Well, that seems like a pretty good place to wrap it up, but we've really enjoyed our time getting the opportunity to talk to you, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right, go Indians.
Go Indians. This has been the Armuchee Indians 2024. Did I say the right year? I think
did.
I did.
You nailed it.
Goodness gracious, I can't believe it. That just didn't sound right.
I know.
Could it possibly be?
I raised my eyebrows at that as well.
It is.
It's hard to believe.
But the 2024 football preview show with Coach Belew of the Armuchee Indians. And thanks again, Coach, and we wish you and the Indians best of luck this season.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That's going to put a wrap on our show today. do want to ask you one more time. Hope we're not being too obnoxious with this, but Ian, what do we want them to do?
We want them to like and subscribe and support these local teams. We're glad to bring this content to you, so spread the word.
That's exactly right. Well, that's going to put a wrap on it for today. Hope you have a great day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Hope you enjoyed this edition of the 2024 Rome and Floyd County High School football preview shows presented by WLAQ Sports. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to our channel for more local content from the WLAQ Radio YouTube channel.